Hi guys, this is Pilleater. I'm here today with a special guest. That guest is AznGrl4WhiteGod, also known as Apple. Hi Apple.
Hey.
So, with a name like AznGrl4WhiteGod, that's kind of a very, I guess, overwhelming name. But I assume Apple is a much more straightforward name, and
They're both pseudonyms, so Apple's not my real name either.
yes.
But it's easier to call me Apple, so you can just call me that.
So, I discovered yourself from a friend, Jutaro, and you have both a Twitter, which is AznGrl4WhiteGod. That's AznGrl for White God, and as well a WordPress site. And briefly looking over it, I think
I also have a Gab and a Tumblr.
Gab and a Tumblr, right? I used to use Gab for a bit, but I have to get back to that. But from looking over your WordPress and your Twitter, at first it comes across as being very of agitating the, I guess, haplotype, as often you will see pictures of worshipping, I'm going to be blunt, white men, or at least a picture of Asian girls in pornography. Or and it seems like there's this troll thing going on, but at the same time you're quite sincere what you're doing.
Right. So let me backtrack a little bit and tell you kind of how it all got started. So the idea is I subscribe to basically this idea of politics of desirability. So it's a sort of hermeneutic perspective that we got socialized in terms of what we're attracted to. So growing up in America, to me, white guys and white in general, the lifestyle has always been something I wanted, And I'm not the only one, there's lots of girls who bleach their hair, bleach their skin, wear contacts. You can look at big Hollywood stars like Beyonce, and she started out that way, all sorts of people. And the idea is that it's because we get socialized in terms of what we see as the norm or the standard. And for me, my idols growing up were Britney Spears and stuff. And so it was okay, how do I fit into this world,
Yeah.
Watching The Hills and I got these beautiful blonde people. They're these are the popular kids. And we're kind of the fringes. Being Asian, I think you always get stuck with that perpetual minority. So it's okay, you can be born in America, you can live in America, but you're always going to be Asian. And it always goes through questions oh, where are you from? And I'm from California. No, where are you really from?
I can totally relate to that. As growing up on a Eurasian background, I have a Japanese background, and though I do consider myself more on the white spectrum, I guess we could be saying too about Roaming Millennial, who's also on YouTube, and she's both Chinese and Irish, and people have crushes on her, and they really take care. She's both Chinese and white, and that's kind of a interesting thing to talk about. And yet at the same time, we live in this culture which is kind of there's this victim status, or at least I guess my enemy and your enemy has been none other than the Hapa subreddit, full of self-loathing people with this victim mentality that if you're Asian male, I could be considered Asian male if I want to, you pretty much have a depressing life and you should kill yourself. And I think, and being a lurker on that Reddit, I thought to myself, well, that's such a negative message. I think of myself more as empowering to be both Asian and white, and therefore I can go forward and, do things. I just don't understand this whole victim mentality, and especially why people are hating you for what you write,
Right. And I never write anything offensive. It's so I started out writing this public diary on WordPress. And it's I talk to my friends, I'm okay, how can I advertise, so I can, my whole goal is to connect with people like me, with people who felt oh, I might be inferior, or I'm not the standard of beauty. Because, people come to me and they said, well, Apple, that's not true, because lots of guys like Asian girls. And I'm yes, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, the blonde bombshells, the Marilyn Monroes, the Britney Spears, the Taylor Swifts, the the top of the top.
Yes.
Those are not Asians. Like, I don't care what way you slice it. There's a show called Fresh Off the Boat. So what? That's not Avengers. Multi-million-dollar blockbusters.
There's that's interesting you say that, because certainly there is this very white standard in America, and yet it's at the same time, in this very, I guess you could say, multicultural and diverse period, it seems that a lot of white men still prefer to be with Asian women, when we were talking this before, most of the time as sexual objects. Yet there are sincere white men that marry Asians and mix genes with Asians and have Eurasian offspring. And most of the time, the Eurasian could be considered another, Asian male or Asian female, if you consider Eurasian that. But
so I feel like that's far and few in between. Like, in my experience, the white guys I dated, often it was like, okay, they really just want to have sex, want to have like the novelty of being with someone exotic, But in the end, they're gonna marry the blonde girl. And I asked them, I talked to a couple of them, and I asked them why, why? And they just tell me like they don't want to mix the genes because they already know in this society Asians are kind of, they have a negative, like minorities in general have a negative stigma associated with them, and they don't want to put their child through that.
It's whatever you believe in that reality or not. I've been kind of the optimist. I believe that it's a good thing that there is this racial mixing between the two, and that there's a bond between white and Asian. And it's true that, that might be a sad truth, that there are actually some white guys that don't want to mix and just use you as, and I think that should be called out. And so my own project of understanding my own racial background and, I started a VOD for an obvious project, Asian Arianism, and made the website, the domain name, the YouTube, the Twitter, and it basically started an uproar within the white nationalist circles because,
really?
And now it's actually being talked about seriously, because I think Asian Arianism is not this, like you said, this toy thing or whatever. That's the anime right. I blame the anime right because the anime right is a bunch of white guys who basically like Asian culture but don't want to mix. Asian Arianism suggests to mix with Asians to have a Eurasian elite, or at least everyone has their own respective, creating a bond between white and Asian. And I mean that in a, I guess, edgy way on the internet, but it is, I think I mean it in an authentic background too. And I don't think there's nothing wrong personally with the Eurasian character. I think we just don't have a media or a collective to help create a strong, collective together. That's how I see it personally.
And I think that's really cool because, like, when I first looked into it, I was like, okay, what is this? Is this like a hate group or something? Like a supremacy group? Like, because that's, and when I asked my friends, honestly, they're like, you don't want to get involved with the alt-right people, they're going to have a very negative stigma that's associated with you. If you hang out with them, you're going to get a really bad brand. And I'm like, you know what? My name's already in the gutter, like, with the Asian community anyway. Well, Jotaro doesn't like me to call them Asian community. He says they're the Asian social justice warrior community.
You're right. Jotaro is absolutely right. And look, I was the martyr too. I basically decided to associate with the alt-right to make this message, because it seems like the most hostile group is, of course, the alt-right, because they're for save the white race, 1488, against all race mixing, and their logic. There's a book we had a podcast with, and his name is Ryan Andrews, The Birth of Prudence, and it's basically a book about this white guy who finds himself an attractive Korean girl, and they love each other, but it's a white nationalist book, and he argues that ultimately he's gonna break up with the girl because Western civilization is better. And I read it, and I was like, what? That's the most convoluted racial propaganda I've read. And I guess that book triggered me to basically confront the alt-right in a very liberal way, to say, all right, there are some values in the alt-right which I think is good, but the values of being pure and crazy seems to me like you're basically, I'm coming from this Asian Aryan stance. And so I think it is, I think there is certainly a bond between whites and Asians. It's just not written about, or there's no words or meanings, is because we live through this social justice warrior climate, and you can't be that. But, people like Tila Tequila or Margaret Cho or, the one Asian,
Lily Mae Mack.
Lily Mae Mack, I've been looking into recently. They all have this preference towards being in, white culture, wherever you think that's bad, or the Happa board
And
thinks it's
it really
bad.
sucks because, like, let's say you're an Asian girl and you like, you've been socialized and conditioned to view white as the standard and white life is the norm. And so you're attracted to white people and you may yourself wish you were white. I mean, that's not your fault, right? But what ends up happening is you get hated on by your own community when you try to talk about these issues. So, well, for me, what I wanted to do is I wanted to come to like the Reddits and whatnot and just say, hey, this is me, this is my public diary. I'm going to talk about all these issues I struggle with. And what I really want is to connect with people like me. I wanted to connect with other Tia Tequilas,
Yes. Exactly.
Other people.
I'm the same way too. But I guess I'm coming from a guy's perspective, but it's amazing because you're a girl being open about it. And today's climate, it's really hard for a girl to do that. It's mostly a guy's area, but it's amazing work you're doing right now. And I think you should connect with every possible Tila Tequila and have this own girl thing. I think it's necessary.
And a lot of Asian guys like message me too, to be honest, and white guys. And they tell me like for instance, I get all these. So let me backtrack a little bit to the story. So I'm coming to these communities, I'm asking for help, and I'm saying, hey, these are my issues, and they literally like shut me down. No one would help me. And the only person that would help me was this white guy named Tom.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And he was like, yeah, okay. If you want to like really reach your message out, you're going to have to start talking about your relationship with white men. You're going to talk about your views with them and talk about your experiences. And so that's what I did. So he was like, you should create a Tumblr account. And I did. And he was like, you should reblog pictures and tell people what you think about it. And then so that's what I did. And I amassed like thousands of followers. Like there's tons of people who come to my site. I still get messages every day from my Tumblr fans.
I'm the same way too. I get a love and hate mail too from my. It's weird when I open up the Skype or mails. Once you start this internet career, you'll either get creepers or stalkers or haters, but you also get people like you and me who basically said, "Oh, finally, we're not alone, and we're actually talking about the same thing." And I'm just confused, like you are. Why isn't there an open forum? Why hasn't this even been discussed, or at least a market to the? I just don't understand.
Because if you come out and you say that, you get shut down, like you're a racist troll or something. And that's the most ironic part about all that is that throughout all this, I never said anything directly offensive to Asian people. But like a lot of the people that came at me were straight up racist. And I like posted pictures like, this is evidence they hate white people. And they wear that like a badge of honor. Like, yeah, I'm racist, and I'm like, oh my God.
I don't, I think it's just a word, racist. I mean, everybody's a little I could defend hatred anyway, but I don't get caught up with things like that. But, websites like, you were posting on this website called You Offend Me, You Offend My Family, which I never really heard about. And supposedly it's one of those, it looks cool at first. I'm like, hey, this is something I would read about, because I'll usually read Amped Asia or something like that. And you actually had a posting career on there. But then all of a sudden it was taken down. Did some mod take it down? Because
I guess the Asian social justice warrior community complained and blackballed me from posting my work. Like they didn't want me to spread my voice or say what I had to say. But if you read what I say, I'm not promoting like hatred. I'm not promoting anti-Asian. I'm talking about this issue of the politics of desirability and how we're socialized into seeing things as a norm. And really explaining, like, yeah, there are people like me, and this is the effect of what happens when you're bombarded constantly with sort of white normalization. And so you will see, like, Asian people walking down the street, and they literally, like, look white. They have blonde hair, they have blue contacts, they have bleached skin.
Some of the porn actresses, it's quite common you see a dark-skinned Asian with blonde hair and acts black. I always thought that was funny. There are some, Asian girls that, you're right, whether you want to call this a white standard or a multi-culti standard, I don't know, but it seems to me that there is this over-masculine, I don't know what to call it, but in my words, I think it's quite attractive in its own right, but some people get offended and think it's racist and they want a different standard of beauty, right? But there's always because we could be talking about the porn world and about how it's different. There's always thoughts about some people argue whether that most of these porn actresses are halves, which I think is funny. I don't know if it's true. I don't know it research, but if they were all half Asian, the porn actresses, then that obviously means that are they broken, or are they just get a lot, or are they the most beautiful creatures ever? So there's this kind of double standard if you talk about it. It's often complained in because I always think these Asian social justice warriors, most of them are probably male. That's what I'm not so sure. I don't know much of them are girls. This is coming from, again, the guy perspective, because I think a lot of Asian males do have it hard, is because they look like Michelin men, or like.
But they don't allow open dialogue.
They don't.
Like, I want to talk about this issue, and then the moment I come in, people like throw every race traitor, self-hater, white troll, anything that they can think of to sabotage and assassinate my character.
I say, okay, don't follow that. You're doing your own thing. So if you do your own thing, you keep doing it.
Really sad though? Yeah. What's really sad is I get a lot of people message me on the DL, like on Reddit, and they're like, yeah, Apple, I feel the exact same way you do, but I'm not going to say anything about it because I don't want to hit the backlash. Like, they don't want to get crucified. Like, they literally saw, like, these people drag me through the dirt, And they're like, yeah, I don't want to do that. Like, so now you have a bunch of scared people who feel the exact same way I do, but they don't want to say anything. Like, literally someone came out and reached out to me and say, oh, I love your stuff. I would love to work on a collaboration written project with you. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. And they're like, but I don't want to be associated with you. And I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah, because I don't want people to know that.
I've done that before. Yeah, I've
identify with you. I'm like, get out of here, If you don't want to associate with me, leave. Don't contact me.
I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I've had so much backlash and criticism. It affects your personality, and it's kind of like you just have to deal with it. And some people delve into a troll mentality. One YouTuber like Ling Anderson, he's a Korean guy. He speaks the same thing we're doing, but he's a troll about it. He's gonna he's gonna pretend he's a Nazi. He's gonna get his sister and pretend, oh, I like white guys. But it's like he's trying to use this, I guess you would quote unquote race play or Margaret Cho style of comedy to get a message across because people are too afraid to talk about it. And I basically fall under that too with the whole Asian Aryan thing. Oh, well, I might as well be an Asian Nazi then. But then it's like, back up for a second. I'm really talking about this. And so I think, but like you said, we've talked about this before. It's good to be serious at times. And sometimes I think to myself, if I'm joking too much, right?
Well, my concern is that you're going to drive away people who are like really serious and they're looking for a place to talk. And then like, oh, this guy is a self-admitted troll.
Well, no, it's like, that's the thing. It's like, we could be trolly to joke, but I'm not trolly to incredibly doubt myself. No, I mean, I went to school for Asian studies and other things, and I'm actually serious about a dialogue for this. I just think by means of being an artist, could we get the message out? But I think you're absolutely right. Somebody's going to have to be serious, and somebody's going to have to be there, like yourself, to be completely honest. And I'm trying to do that myself while balancing the act of being an artist and doing humor. And I think it really is pretty much a balancing act on that. So
I think the Asian Aryan site has a lot of potential for that, especially like, if you do what I recommended in terms of building those like pivotal people. Because I was just talking to Jotaro, and he has like a totally different view than me. He doesn't believe in the socialization theory. He believes in something called, I forget what it's called. He said that people are like lights, like a light theory. And I was like, well, I don't really know about that, but I mean, that's why Asian Aryan is cool, because it allows us to all basically talk about our different perspectives with the end goal being the same.
Definitely. You've been writing on your WordPress for there's a lot of entries on it. I have to catch up and read. If I was to start from the beginning, I can really only read what your recent drama has been. And I don't like to talk about haters or anything. That's just the way
if you scroll down, so it starts from the beginning, like the bottom, and you scroll.
Some interesting articles I picked up on was the Asian men trying to emulate white men in underwear ads.
Oh yeah, that was like
I think that's cute. Like, I think that's personally, I don't have any offense with that. I mean, depending if you think that's.
I'm not offended, but they're not as hot.
I think they're fine. I think it's like, okay, I get it. We're just
even physically speaking, you have like Other guys are like 6 packs and all muscled out, and you have a guy that's not even like physically comparable.
I mean, I've told this before with I had several podcasts before about the homosexual question in Asian Arianism. I'm not joking at all. I think there could also be a bond between white male, Asian male. Totally. I mean, it's not talked about that much.
I'm sure.
But it's just, it's this awkward. I think a friend of mine, I think it might have been, I don't want to say his name, but he told me that if you had a gay white male, Asian female, it's often going to be the Asian male. Asian male is going to be very feminine and actually kind of surpasses Asian female. Or if both those two males going together, whether you want to say dom or sub, sub or dominant, they kind of works out in its way. It's just that it's hard to come by because it's very feminine, I guess, both sides, or at least you can have masculine. I mean, we could be talking about Yukio Mishima and whatever, but that's just me being liberal and very optimistic about how. But I totally understand the preferences if you prefer, the strong white guy over. But my philosophy is, look, there is a certain aesthetic of the Asian man that is strong and that is good looking. But I think, I don't want to sound like a HAPA or a SJW. I just think, I say this all the time, there needs to be more of a cohesion of Asian male, white female, for the sake that there can be, they're going to have your Asian kids, but it shows you that some of these Asian males are also Eurasian males as well. So, that comes off from white male, Asian female. I think the improvement of Asian male, white female can happen once there is an improvement with white male, Asian female. So when we're talking about making acceptable white male, Asian female, we can also have, it could be okay to have Asian male, white female. Even though there are some, I only know like 2 white girls that really prefer to be around Asian men. It's a very niche thing. But eventually, there's going to be, there are some Eurasian men I know who basically date, white girls, and it's like, or even Asian girls, because it's just a common thing. And so I think it'll just naturally happen, the improvement of Asian male, white female. That's just my point of it. There's just a lot of people that says it's not happening and it's terrible or something.
Right. Well, I had a lot of fans that reached out to me that were like, because they've been so shattered in terms of the perspective of like what Asian male represents in America, that they felt like they couldn't really attract someone who would truly find them attractive and love them. And so they started getting into this like cuck mentality where they feel like, I'm going to date somebody and they're going to be with the white guy and I'm going to be okay with that. Like I literally had lots of people message me and told me like that was what they were into. And not because they wanted to be into it. It was just because it was so ingrained in them that they're not going to be the desirable first choice.
It's also an ingrained message too. I like to talk about this. It turns out, there are a lot of, for the honest white guys that go ahead and marry Asian women, some of them just don't like white girls, or not to sound sexist or whatnot. It's just that there's a nature with white girls being, feminist or like really bad feminism. We're talking about, not like Asian feminism. We're talking about really bad feminism, the shrewd mentality, things that are just, bad and materialistic. And so some sensitive white guys will go with Asian women and prefer that company. However, I don't want to mean to bash white women. And no reason I'm saying white women are bad. I think there are sensitive white women that love Asian culture as well. It's just that they're a very small number. And I think they keep it secret because they don't have any masculine leader to basically be open about it. And so there are some white girls on Twitter that say, oh, I wish I had an anime boyfriend. It really just means code for I want an Asian boyfriend or something like that, or some Eurasian boyfriend. And it's just it's a weird thing. I think because when I talk about the best, because we're talking about whites and Asians, and so I think when we're talking about the best bond between whites and Asians, it has to be on both sides, as white male, white female, Asian male, Asian female, and both can get along together. I don't mean to X out the white woman or the Asian male. They have a place. It's just that it needs to, I think it's going to start first with the white male, Asian female relationships, because that's happening in numbers now. And that
kind of reminds me of like the civil rights movement and like the minority rights and the women rights, and it was like happening at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you were a minority woman, who do you go with? Do you go with the minorities or do you go with the female rights? And those in the minority were like, you have to go for the minority rights first because that's,
It's. I think I'm pretty confident and I'm pretty optimistic, and that's why I always say that the whole Asian Aryan scheme is it's both a thing. Unlike the enemies will say that it's a one-sided sexist thing. Is there any commentary on that? Like when you say, I like white men more. Do you think it's more, or do you think Asian men do have a chance with, picking up? I mean, it's obvious that if an Asian man goes with a Eurasian woman, they're a part of white genes as well, right?
Right. I used to self-identify as white. Like, I would just say I'm white, and people, like the guys I dated, and the people just constantly reminded me, like, you're Asian, It's like, I think it's the one-drop rule. If you're part Asian, and sometimes you're just seen as Asian. And so now I just call myself Asian American.
Oh, yeah.
But then when people talk to me, I'm like, yeah, I'm actually happy with it,
I think of it as the next step. Like, Asian American is a soft term, but I think like when people are going to get more radical and more, I'm kind of if people get more radical, I guess Asian Aryan might be a future term or something else, maybe Eurasian American or some kind of, but yeah, something could happen on that. Sure. I mean, one of your other blog posts, I did talk about this, but I love Mitski. You were talking about Mitski right before on May 3rd with her song, Your Best American.
That song resonated with like my experience.
But Mitski's Eurasian too. Mitski would be this, Asian offspring. So
there's a lot of people who have like our story, they're like, but we don't have a place to get together and talk. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like there isn't. Yeah. Oh, I remember what Jotaro was talking about. He was talking about like biological, magical, pagan outlook with secondary regard to socialization. He believes that we're light beings and not social beings. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, but you do that and I'll do what I do. And then we're all doing this for the same cause. So it'll be all good.
Now, one thing intimidating I find on your blog,
intimidating.
There's one intimidating thing that often you will joke with the porn pictures of white guys on top of Asian girls. I mean, are you a surfer of porn, or you just put these pictures just to get shock value or something?
So I don't like porn actually, and if you read my Tumblr, I answer that question.
Yes.
There are things I like like Arrow. I'm a big fan of him. But no, the porn was Tom told me to reblog them. He said, give my thoughts on it, and people will, start to notice my name, and then they'll start to come to my Tumblr, and then they're going to hear my message.
Mm-hmm. It seems like the porn thing, even though it's kind of, people might are prudes or be offended by it, I think it might be kind of effective to get a message across to say, like,
I got tons of people. I got tons of people message me, and they're like, I started out looking at the porn first, but then I read your message. I'm like, wow, I didn't know this happens in society. I'm reaching out to so many people. But the problem was with Tumblr, everybody thought it was like a kink blog. And so everybody thought that I was like trying to hook up with white guys. Yeah. So all these white guys would contact me and they're like, hey, you want to fuck?
Oh, no.
And I'm like, no, I have a boyfriend. I'm not trying to fuck.
Well,
so
certainly,
it's really confusing to people, and they're like, "Is it a fantasy thing?" And I'm like, "No, it's not a fantasy."
I mean, I do like the content; it's very powerful content, and I think porn has a very powerful message. I mean, especially the article about whitewashed Asian Americans on that. You're just looking at pictures, and then it's like, it seems like some porn's there, but it's very jokey in the message. I mean, what are your thoughts on the whole whitewash thing? Are you pro for it, or kind of criticism? Do you have any, or are you kind of, what is that, and like the whole, if you could summarize that whole
So
post?
In my blogs, and in my diary, I'm not making any judgment. I'm literally saying, this is what happened when I grew up, this is how I was affected, and this is how I am now. And so the idea is there's lots of people who are out there who want to better assimilate with American society, and so they want to look more white. And like when I was younger, I'd avoid eating Asian food in public. Wow. And and just try to really hang out with the popular white people and try to sort of be seen better as an American. And I think that I want to create a community where it's okay to feel that way. Because the problem now is, like, if you feel that way and you go to, like, one of the subreddits, you're going to get roasted. Like, they're going to call you every type of bad name there is, you know?
Exactly.
And I don't think that's supportive. I mean, I can say, yeah, I understand why you feel that way. Do you not want to feel that way? We can help you. Or, oh, if you feel like that's the proper way to go, sure. I mean, I'm agnostic to it, you know?
I guess for one final question, I was kind of interested in this too, but what do you think about Elliot Rodgers? That's often a complaint about Asian males, and I get that a lot myself. And people think I'm some kind of Elliot Rodgers. I mean, when Elliot Rodgers, went on his killing spree a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know he was Eurasian, but people have now made it a common joke that if you're a Eurasian male, you're going to shoot up the place or you have crazy problems. And it's like, I think Elliot Rodgers is a nice looking guy. I just think he got a hold of guns, went down the wrong path, and I think he is a good, I would even go so far to say he was a supreme gentleman, just not in, he was too young and he should have been on the right path. I mean, what are your thoughts about Elliot Rodgers?
Well, I talked a little about this in my post. I think that guys like Elliot Rodgers and girls like myself, we're just socialized a certain way. And so, you're told, white is superior. And then if he tried to claim white, like just like I tried to claim white, but when it comes back to him, it snaps at him somehow. And he feels like, all these minority people or other people are getting white girls and he's not. And he really took that internal hatred and like absorbed it in. And so I think for some guys, they resort to violence. And I think, and for girls, many of us, we resort to throwing ourselves at white guys because it's kind of like, it's the way to move up that stature, that ladder. I think they're both unhealthy, probably. And I think that not everyone reacts that way. So I don't think that like Elliot Rodgers or girls who throw themselves at white guys, I don't think that's overgeneralized response. I mean, some people are very healthy and they're able to adjust. But I think that depends on their support system.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of my whole goal is to get over the whole self-hatred thing. I think there's just too much self-hatred, and it's a bad thing. I don't think anyone should self-hate themselves and actually take the opposite in pride as being, this thing. And I don't believe in this whole. And so I believe that's necessary, that both male and female should take pride who they are and go forward and do their own thing. So yeah. So you basically, right now you just have your Twitter and your WordPress. Do you have any plans in the future, or are you going to keep blog posting, or keep doing your Twitter, or maybe do YouTube in the future? I'm not so sure, but what are your plans for the future?
I think I get too much hatred for YouTube. I'm worried, people are like actively following my every tweet and posting my followers online to insult them. So.
Oh no, well.
So probably not that. I'm really excited about building up the Asian Aryan site. I mean, and just making that the place for people like who feel like they're dealing with the self-hatred struggle to come out and talk to an audience that's a support group that are like, I can literally say I've been there. I've been there. I know what you're talking about. You're dating only white guys. You're not dating Asian guys. I know what you're talking about.
I thank you so much for helping out with my site. It's just a project, one-man project, but I have other friends helping out. But I really like what, I will, definitely, because we were also doing an Asian Aryan chat on Twitter, and you got all these people all of a sudden showing up, and I think that's a good thing. You just have to
there's so
cater
many
the
people
message.
So many people who feel the same way that we do.
To cater the message, and I don't want to be too offensive or trolly, and that's one thing I've kind of learned from you is, and I have to thank you for that. And I think we should definitely take the Asian Aryan message forward and make it more accessible. And I guess you're right, more or less about politics and the hard stuff, and make it more, I guess, for the normie audience, or at least some relation to it.
That's just for me. It's hard for me to follow
German
history stuff.
I think you're
right.
And
Jotaro's dropping like, they did this in Germany. I'm like, I don't know.
All right.
I'm from America. I don't know.
Same. So, Apple, it's nice talking to you, and everyone check out. It's AznGrl4WhiteGod. Isn't it Asian American on Skype.wordpress?
Yeah.
Okay.
Asian American GF on Skype.wordpress.com. And that's my public diary. And then if you're interested in checking my Tumblr, it's AznGrl4WhiteGods.tumblr.com. And that was the one that Tom asked me to do, and it has a lot more sexual content. So, like, people ask me about my sexual experiences and whatnot. So that's a lot of that's on there.
Well, Apple, it's nice talking like always. Hope to talk to you later.
Sure. Thank you.